Okay, so with apologies to Joni Mitchell, we're about to look at clouds from both sides now. Microsoft just minutes away from releasing its fiscal fourth quarter report. It is expected to post earnings per share of $2.29 on revenue of $52.44 billion. And then analysts do expect Google parent Alphabet to show profit of $1.28 a share on revenue of $69.88 billion for the second quarter. Now, ahead of the reports, we're going to keep checking these numbers because they matter. Microsoft, by the way, which has lost 25% year to date compared to the S&P, which is down 18% year to date, is down about 3.33% right now. Alphabet, Google down about 2.33%. It has been clipped 27% this year. Both have made their cloud services a centerpiece of their businesses. But just as soon as those two report, make no mistake, analysts and investors are going to be looking ahead to Meta's earnings tomorrow after the bell and to Apple and Amazon, which report on Thursday. Now, ahead of the big reports, they're tinged in red, sorry, because remember, Microsoft already trimmed its earnings outlook in June due to the black clouds of a stronger dollar raining on its parade. But could its cloud business, you get it? You see what I'm doing here? Could its cloud business counter at least some of this storm? Tom Forte is senior analyst and managing director at D.A. Davidson. All right, Tom, what will you be really scrutinizing here? And I'd like to say the cloud business because we could start with something positive. That's been a great revenue generator.
Sure. So if you look at Amazon in particular, their cloud computing business and their advertising business have been bright spots.
Yeah.
So when I think about Google/Alphabet's earnings and I think about Microsoft's earnings, their respective cloud computing divisions ought to be doing very well. The challenge, as you pointed out, is that they're both multinational firms. And while the strong dollar is wonderful for Americans who want to travel in Europe, it's not so good for multinational firms. You're seeing some 20-year highs versus the Japanese yen, at parity with the euro, and also strong against the British pound. So cloud computing, I think, will be a bright spot when Alphabet and Microsoft report, and for Amazon later this week. But I think for the multinational firms, the strong dollar is a unique and new challenge in the June quarter.
Well, let's dig down into the cloud business first, because these are some heady numbers. The market share has pretty much remain static when you're looking at the rankings here. Number one, the 600-pound gorilla here, or is it 800 pounds? Amazon Web Services, 33% of the market share. Azure, which of course is Microsoft, 21%. Google Cloud pulling up the rear, 10%, and then you can see the rest: Alibaba, IBM, Salesforce, Tencent, Oracle. What is it about the cloud business that is so valuable at this point that it's sort of taken, I don't want to say the lead over ad sales, but where do you see both of them in relation to each other, if that makes sense?
So the good news about cloud computing versus advertising is an argument can be made it's less of a discretionary spend and more of an investment for companies to save money. So when you think about companies going from their own servers to Google's or Amazon's or Microsoft's, generally speaking, that's a money-saving effort. And the good news is that you've seen improvements in travel. A lot of these sectors that had scaled back their cloud computing usage during the early stages of the pandemic. So I think, again, cloud computing right now is in a good place. Advertising, especially digital advertising, is in a very difficult place on concerns of entering a recession.
And I don't like to make the comparison between Google and Snap because they are two very different businesses, but Snap was a pretty big disaster there. And you can certainly triangulate or distill something from what Snap reported in its numbers. And so therefore, I'm looking at ad sales. I'm thinking everybody's going to have trouble with this. Am I wrong?
So I think Apple essentially broke Snapchat. So I think that was kind of the initial challenge for Snapchat, for Facebook and others on Apple's efforts that are privacy related. And making it more difficult for advertisers to determine, does their social networking advertising work? Is it effective? For Google, their search engine optimization actually benefited from Apple's move to the extent that advertisers said, hey, I'm going to put more on search engine optimization. That continues to work. I'm going to scale back my budget on social networking. So I think that's kind of the good news for Google. Whether or not YouTube, though, is immune to some of the digital advertising pressures that Snapchat That'll be interesting to find out after the company reports.
Yeah, again, we are about 40 minutes away from Microsoft and Google reporting. We bring up Meta, and we talk about the strong dollar. We talk about ad sales. We have to talk about TikTok and the competition that it has just shoved in Meta's face. And you see it with yesterday's news where Kim Kardashian and Kylie Jenner, in a very ill-timed, I don't know what it was. Was it an Instagram post? It was an Instagram post, and said, stop trying to be TikTok. Meantime, Meta reports tomorrow. So that is certainly not good news. But the Instagram piece of this, they've tried to really get attention from Reels and that business, but TikTok is still the real leader here, right?
So we're working on our next white paper that we'll be presenting at our Big Sky conference, August 21 and August 23. And we're talking about the disruptive force of TikTok. Now, the way I think about it for Facebook Meta is an incredibly well-run company, and the playbook in 2022 is very different from the playbook in 2012. There's too much regulatory heat on Facebook/Meta. It can't acquire the competition that's disrupting it. So I think when you look at its portfolio of brands, using its youngest asset, Instagram, to try to combat TikTok, that's actually, I think, the best Facebook/Meta can do right now.
Okay. And a quick mention of Apple. We want everybody to know that a good chunk of Apple's revenue comes from outside of the Americas. So what is the foreign exchange headwind risk you see there with the strong dollar?
I think there's significant risk to Apple's earnings. Management had indicated, I think, a 300 basis point negative impact in the June quarter expected from currency. It could be at least that much for the September quarter. And it's going to be challenging for Apple with such a large percentage of sales outside the U.S.
Good to see you, Tom. Tom Forte. He's going to be glued to the reports that come out after the bell. And yes, I have actually embraced TikTok. I hope you follow me, Tom. I'm on TikTok at RedFoxLiz. I do morning market reports. Okay, wrong answer. No answer is wrong answer. All right, Tom Forte, thank you very much.